The key question to ask if we're dealing with a really difficult situation or a really difficult feeling, a really difficult emotion is, how much am I resisting this? Usually we only see the surface layer of the things that we're afraid of, and we haven't actually taken the time to investigate into why it is we're actually so deeply afraid of that thing happening. And because of that, we stay so occupied by the surface layer of affairs. And it's sort of a state of perpetual resistance, if you notice that, right? Because we're always just trying to avoid or mitigate or downplay the situation that's happening, we never actually get to the point of just accepting the emotion or accepting that feeling. If we feel afraid that something bad is going to happen, we're so concerned with making sure that doesn't happen and sort of megalomaniacally trying to alter and do and push and resist against every single situation that comes up, that we don't really have the time or the breathing space to just recognize that right now there's actually a part of us that's really hurting. I think it's a courage thing a lot of the time as well. I think it takes an enormous amount of courage to stop and look inside and actually surrender to this feeling tone or this emotion that spurs out of the potential unfolding of a bad situation. It could even be something like I notice for myself sometimes, if I meet someone, if I'm dating someone, and I won't talk to them for a couple of days, I can notice this anxiety response come up of but then I won't have that opportunity anymore. And it's as if, does this person really matter so much? And it's not even about them mattering actually, to go a bit deeper. It's just recognizing that, are you really so desperate for this situation or for this affection or for needing this thing that you're willing to just live in a state of anxiety and trying to manage and organize everything to go the way that you want it to? It's almost like it's anything and everything just to get to the fact that maybe in that moment, you or I in this case, maybe it's just anything to avoid getting to the fact that I feel afraid of being alone. Or just afraid that I'm maybe not good enough in that situation. Just all those underlying feelings that are a bit below the surface. It's just anything to avoid those, right? And because there's so much energy being funneled into trying to avoid them, it never actually gets dealt with. And then every consequential action after that, and you can tell me if you relate to this, maybe not, it just goes into compensating. Because it's whatever. Okay, it's whatever, I don't even care. I'll just find someone else. And you go out and meet 2-3 more people that night. And you get this temporary little boost. Because you feel okay, now I've secured myself. But then 2 of them don't message you back. One's a bit inconsistent, and then one's maybe too consistent, and that kind of turns you off. Okay, I've got to go do it again. And so on, the cycle goes on and on and on. Just looking for that right situation. Always assuming that the thing that you want is outside of you. And again, always kind of skirting around, darting around, and avoiding the fact that there is just this feeling inside. And what I've noticed is as soon as I actually say that it's okay to just accept the way that feels, it becomes so obvious that that's the thing I've been looking for all along. Is I just want to be able to surrender to the way that things are. But I think it's so easy to assume that we can only surrender to the way things are, and we can only feel any sense of peace or okayness or acceptance in a situation once we have everything figured out. So later on, once I have everything figured out, then I can feel the peace, then I can feel the acceptance. But not now. Of course, not now. Why would I be able to feel it now? And it's almost like there's a sense of this kind of Catholic guilt kind of thing. Not I wasn't ever raised a Catholic, but I recognize it as a kind of deep, inherent sense of guilt of not really being able to just be okay now. It's like you can only be okay when you've atoned or when you've got to a certain point. Whether you've got a certain amount of success with women or money, got a certain amount of success in your spiritual unfoldment, or you've read 100 books, you've read a book a week, you've been a good little boy and a good little girl, and you've done all the things, and you've been productive enough to feel worthy of actually just being at peace. And it's interesting, isn't it? Like when you detach a little bit and you just observe that narrative as like a free-floating thought form, and you don't experience this as this thing that's got like, if you've seen Hellraiser, it's got like 8 hooks inside of you. I feel like that's the perfect depiction. The thumbnail for this video should be Hellraiser with the hooks. Instead of just experiencing it as this thing that has 8 to 12 different hooks inside of you at all angles and is pulling you hither and thither without your control, when you can actually just see that free floating thought form, and there's a little bit of separation from it, and there's just that spaciousness and that awareness of recognizing that I don't actually have to be any certain way to be okay. And that actually, probably the whole reason I've always, or any time ever felt not okay, is really actually just because I've not allowed this thing to occur right now. It's like I've been trying to fight against life, like as if I know better than life. And like I said, it's sort of got a megalomaniac quality to it, always needing to control everything. I think it's something that's so commonplace that it can be difficult to realize how immature it is. I'm making this video for myself as much as I'm making it for you. It's just to speak to that part of me that, and hopefully that part of you, that always just wants to fight against what's happening and always feels like it needs a little bit more in order to be okay. Sort of like just an open letter to look at that. And if this just was to reach one person who was able to maybe separate for a moment, like I feel like I'm doing right now, to be honest, and just to separate from a moment, for a moment, and to realize, life is actually pretty short, and when I'm not fighting against everything, things are actually quite calm. And I actually feel a lot more open. Like I feel more open to myself. I feel like I'm not trying to forgive myself for anything. I just feel forgiving. It's like I feel lenient with myself or with other people around me or my situation. It's like I just feel like I'm where I'm meant to be at this time. And I want to laugh more. It's like I want to yawn. I want to let out that tension that I feel like I've been holding on to when I've tried to resist so much. It feels good. I wonder why we feel so intent on avoiding that. And like there's such a constant sense of needing other things in order to be okay. It's just a passing thought, but it's one that has become more interesting in recent weeks and months. I'd love to hear your opinion on that. This was not in any way meant to be a video of like a how to do this or do that. This was sort of, like I said, just an open letter, an invitation, something to explore a different state of consciousness with me. I hope you got value out of it. I hope you got value out of listening to these pontifications of mine, these philosophical ramblings. If you did, appreciate you subscribing to the channel, helping me build it up, liking the video and sharing this with anyone you feel like would get value out of it. And I'd also love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments on why that is, because I'm a student, a white belt in this as much as anyone else, is just to realize, why is it that we always feel like we need to have 1,000,001 things figured out before we actually allow ourselves to just be okay in this moment? What if we did it the other way around? That's another interesting thing I'd love to hear your opinion on. What would it be like if we started from a place of knowing that we're actually okay? Would we be still able to do amazing things and to have an amazing impact, but just maybe we wouldn't be doing it coming from a place of fear? Maybe we'd be doing it coming from a place of already accepting ourselves. Something I've been wondering about recently. Anyway, that's going to be me for today. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you're having a beautiful day. That's me, and I'll see you next time.